Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word Prison Pro to 44222. Again, text Prison Pro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you reviewed our podcast and we'll send you a free digital book. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode of Prison Professors. Welcome to the Prison Professors program. I am Michael Santos, and today I get to introduce you to Rafael Gonzalez. Rafael is going to tell us about his story and experiences with the criminal justice system, and together we are going to have a conversation about what works, what prepares somebody for success after they have been in struggle, and we just try to provide as many voices as we can. Rafael reached out to us through our website at prisonprofessors.com or through our Facebook page or YouTube or someplace, and I'm just so thrilled that he took the time on a Sunday morning to spend a half an hour with us sharing his strategy. So Rafael, thank you so much for being with us, first of all. And let me just ask you a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you're from and what you're doing right now with your life.
I'm originally from New Jersey, but I was born in Puerto Rico. And as of right now, I'm based in an IT tech, and I work for myself.
So you're an IT tech in in Tennessee, working for yourself. Tell us about your experiences with the criminal justice system. When did you first become exposed to challenges in the criminal justice system?
I'll tell you. My experience started here in 1974 when my parents came here from Puerto Rico into New Jersey. And I got into drugs very early in life, about 10. By the time I was 10 years old, I was already doing cocaine, marijuana, and other drugs, not heavy drugs, but other drugs.
Well, cocaine, some might argue, is a heavy drug. You were 10 years old and using cocaine?
Yes.
Wow. And how did that influence your adolescent years?
Well, to support my habit, I became basically a habitual juvenile offender.
So when you say to support your habit, how old were you when you felt that you started to have a habit? You said you started at 10. Did you have a habit right from the start, or how old were you?
Yes, just then. I was in the inner city, part of the inner city youth growing up, belonged to gangs and so forth. And I actually was I was called Mice. My nickname was Mice because I always had money. I was able to find money when the others, were doing other things. And I kept the gang, well fed, I guess. And by the time I was 12, I was put into a juvenile detention center in Princeton, New Jersey. It's called Skillman Detention Center for Youth. And I wind up in Catskills, New York, with Mike Tyson before they transferred me to Catskills, then from Catskills into Skillman, New Jersey. And I had a foster parent, a very nice lady who educated me and helped me bring myself back together. I'll give you her first name. Her first name is I remember Shana Geisel.
So Rafael, when you went into the detention center, were you 10 years old, or were you a little bit older before you got caught and were locked in detention?
I was 12 years old.
And you were in there for how long?
I did 2 years.
Is that the only time you were in the criminal justice system?
I've been in and out in the criminal system for other charges. Oh, by the way, I had to be under supervision until I was 21 years old. After I was released from the juvenile detention center, I had to be under supervision. Then after that, it's been an up and down road. I joined the military. I came out of the military. I was very, very aggressive. Once I came out of the military, I had an implant. I'm going to talk to you straight. I'm going to let you know everything that, because I appreciate the work you do. I mean, it hit me very nicely when I heard your story. So I had an implant put in my knee, on my left knee, and
when you were how old?
About 22.
So I just want to make sure I get in the background correctly. So you started in the criminal justice system when you were 12. You served about 2 years. You were on supervision until you were 21, and during that stretch of time, I understand you to say that you were brought back into the criminal justice system several times in and out before you joined the military. Is that right?
Well, after the military.
Oh, so you went in. So after you got out of the detention center when you were about 14 or 15, are you saying that you didn't have any more problems until you were 21, or you did have a couple of problems?
I did, but I was never caught.
I see. I think, and the reason I wanted to bring that out is because some of our listeners are in schools for youth. They have also been adjudicated as being at risk or having challenges. And it's important for people to realize that there's a pathway through, and it begins when people start making better decisions, I think. And you started making better decisions, is that right, when you met your mentor, Sheena? Or is she the one who inspired you to begin changing your life?
Well, actually, she became my stepmother. So
she became your stepmother, and she was also an inspiration to you?
Yes. Very inspirational. I've been trying to find her. I did make a journey to New Jersey about 2 years ago, and I found out that she still has property in Princeton. I found out through that. I went to the tax assessor's office, and I found her through that. And I sent her a letter, and she wrote me back. But since we haven't been communicating for a very long time, she declined to make more comments. But she's there, and I want to meet her in person one day because she was very, very, very inspirational to me. And she basically is part of the person that I have become after being part of this criminal system that basically discriminates in so many ways that it's almost impossible to enumerate,
Well, you're certainly an example of somebody, though, who's had it hanging over their head for more than 30 years, because earlier you told me that you're now in your late 40s, and it all began when you were only 12 years old. And it's very difficult once somebody is wrapped up into the criminal justice system to break free and to build a life of significance and meaning and relevance. And so I think it's important to learn lessons from people like you, Rafael, and I'm so grateful to you for sharing this story for either young people or anybody going inside, that they can begin sowing seeds for a better life. But even if they do, they got to recognize that the criminal justice system may always hang over their head, as it has done for you. So you finished at 21, you went into the military, and thank you for your service, by the way. How long were you in the military?
I spent 4 years.
So 4 years, and then you were telling us that you had an implant. What was the issue that resulted in you getting an implant in your knee?
I was in Fort Sill, Oklahoma Military Hospital for 2 weeks for walking pneumonia. All I remember is reading a magazine. It's called Military Strategy, and the topic was Coronado, the conquest of the Southwest. The Southwest territories, and all I remember is waking up 2 weeks later. I don't recall anything else. I remember the magazine I was reading. I remember the topic, but I remember nothing else. Only the drill sergeant coming into the room and escorting me out.
What do you mean you don't remember? Were you drugged, or were you attacked, or did something happen to you, or did you just black out, or can you give us a little more clarity on why it is that you can't remember anything?
I probably became part of an experiment.
I see.
Military. I became a guinea pig in the military, and like I said, I found this disc, which I documented when it was removed in my left knee. Back in the 80s, back in the late 80s, that's what they were using. And I was very aggressive, man. When I was in the streets, I did some crazy stuff out there. one time I was, bathing myself. All of a sudden, like I touched something in my knee, on the side of my knee, and I rubbed it back and forth, and it felt like a small lentil, like a bean, lentil bean on my left side of my knee. And I started rubbing and massaging it, and I said, I have to get some help here. And I went to a doctor, and he operated on me, and he removed it. I documented, and it looks exactly what I'm saying. It's an implant, what's called a RDI, something like that, RFDI, something like that, which is a radio.
So it's like a radio frequency type of a plant?
Yes, that's correct.
And you had this unknowingly in your knee for how long until you went to the doctor?
Probably since the military.
So it was in the military. Was it a military doctor that discovered it?
No, it was a private doctor. I discovered it when I was bathing myself, and I went to a doctor, a private doctor, and he did an in-office operation.
And your understanding or belief at this stage in your life is that at some point you were in the military, somebody made you into a guinea pig and drugged you and operated on you without your knowing, and you had this implant in your knee for years?
I would say so, yes. It's no other way there's no other way of looking at it from my perspective.
And are you telling me that you think that the implant is what resulted in you becoming violent?
Oh man, I was crazy out there.
Was that before you discovered the implant or after?
I would say before. I was violent, and very aggressive. And there's some crazy stuff out there, but once I discovered it was removed, my aggressive and my post-traumatic stress and all that just, simmered down a little bit.
I see. And when did you conclude your obligation to the military? How old were you?
I went in when I was like 22.
Okay.
21, 22, and I did 4 years.
And what has your life been like since you've come out of the military? Did you have any more problems with the criminal justice system?
I've had, but not in the same manner that as a juvenile. In other words, it's more like self-defense and protecting of my family.
Uh-huh. Were you ever able to get any resolution with regard to that implant that you found in your knee? Did you ever get any feedback from the military on why it was there or what they knew about it, or did they deny that they knew anything about it?
It became an issue. It became an issue. I was compensated. Yes, I was compensated, and
so the military acknowledged that there was an issue, and they issued you some compensation in exchange for drugging you and planting an implant in you. Is that what you're telling us?
In a way, the system did reimburse me for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh, okay. So you were reimbursed for post-traumatic stress disorder, but
yes.
There was never any acknowledgement that anybody put an implant in you to presumably make you more violent, a more aggressive soldier? No.
The military they didn't do that. I went. In other words, let's put it this way: I became disabled with post-traumatic stress.
I see. So that's why you were compensated for being disabled because of post-traumatic stress. And where did you serve, Rafael?
Excuse me?
Where did you serve?
I served in the Army.
No, what countries did you go?
I stayed in the States.
I see.
Yeah, I stayed in the States. I was a tank operator, and I stayed in the States. I actually was going to be deployed in the first war of Iraq, and I was training heavy. To go there, but God forbid I wasn't sent there.
I see. And so what has your life been like since concluding your obligation to the military?
Well, like you just mentioned before, it has its up and down. When you have a record or two, or you're accused of certain things by the cockamamie cops out here in Florida, very, very, very corrupt cops You know, they can set you up and send you to prison or to jail, and they have no repercussions. There's nothing. You know, they can do whatever they want.
Did you get sentenced to prison?
I spent time in jail. I spent some time in jail, not in prison though.
How much time have you spent in custody since you concluded your obligation to the military?
In and out, I probably do a month here and a month there.
How many times would you say that you were brought into the criminal justice system?
I would say probably like a dozen times.
And can you tell us what changed, or what inspired you or influenced you that resulted in you not having a more serious problem where you were taken out of custody and locked in prisons for a long period of time? Like, as you know, I was locked in prison for 26 years. What resulted in your life that you were able to avoid that, besides not committing crimes like I did?
Yeah. Well, one thing is that, you know, once you're isolated from everybody, and you know, sometimes you wind up in the prison system and you want to be alone. You don't want to be around people who's going to cause you more trouble than what you already have. So you decide that you want to be isolated. And when you're isolated in confinement, you know, you start reading. And one of the things that I found to be inspirational to me is the Word of God. And I'm sure a lot of prison inmates, that's the first thing that they grab is a Bible and pray to something and start worshiping. That is the most important thing that I've ever discovered, was basically finding God in the system.
So finding God is certainly helpful and inspirational, but I think it's also inspirational, Rafael, to hear stories from people like you who were able to break the cycle, even though they found a lot of struggle in finding employment or finding perhaps extra awareness and profiling from law enforcement. If you make a decision to look for spiritual guidance and then also look for guidance from people like you, I think it gives people inside hope that they too can build a better life. And it begins, as you just said, by separating yourself from others who have a criminal mindset. And it also begins with focusing on what can I do with the resources that I have around me to begin building a better life. That certainly was the strategy that worked for me. It worked for my partner, Sean and Justin, and it's worked for you to an extent. I mean, you said that you were wrapped up into the criminal justice system 12 times, but at least you were able to go on and build your life. Tell us about what steps you took to build your life, because now you're working as a productive member of society, as a technology, in the technology sector. How did you do that? How did you learn those skills?
Well, it's also part of the military, and going, you know, to in the military, I learned a lot of things, and I just didn't know what to do with those skills. Because basically you learn a lot of skills, but most of the skills you learn is basically how to take somebody out. Being aggressive in the streets, I mean, I'm constantly, you know, like fighting with myself not to really injure someone or kill someone, because I don't want to, as a juvenile, I already knew that being away from your family is not easy, you know. What I did basically just went to vocational schools and learned on my own a lot. I don't watch TV because it basically, you know, like TV is basically a programming full of garbage. So I do a lot of research and read and so forth. And I got involved in IT technology when I finished a course in a college in New Jersey, and I just took it from there.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the employment market has received you in light of your criminal justice background and, you know, your history? What challenges have you faced in trying to get a job?
Well, it hasn't been so difficult, Mike, because I work for myself. And I know that if I went before an employer, the first thing they do is just, you know, dig up crap about your past. And I always look at it this way, that nobody out there, I'm talking about nobody out there is exempt from being wrong, or being from being wrong, and they just haven't been caught. There's a lot of criminals in the upper system. There's a lot of criminals in the white collar criminals. They're favored. They can do a lot of things and get away with it. So to me, working for myself, it's been much easier because I can do whatever I like and do and whatever I like without having that over my head. Having that that if I go into an employer, the first thing they do is research your background, and you see he's got a background or he's got a criminal record, and they just look at that. They don't look at nothing else.
What's inspiring to me about your story, Rafael, is you've never given up. Even though that you were a young boy when you found yourself in trouble with drugs, and a young boy when you were taken into the criminal justice system, you were able to pull yourself together, to have the foresight to enroll in the military and get some training, come back, push yourself further and go to school, and then recognize that you got to live in the world as it exists. And as the world exists, sometimes it's hard for people who have a criminal justice background to get a job. So what I'm inspired by is that you took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and went out to create your own jobs by building your own business and working for yourself, which is really inspiring. And it's something I encourage a lot of people to do. Recognize that sometimes the world is not going to be kind to people who have a criminal background, but that doesn't mean we can't become successful. And you're living proof that you've done it. What is your strategy for going out to find clients who will hire you?
It's not that difficult, because when it comes to technology, there's clients. Even the people that I work with, counselors and doctors and people that I work with because I still get counseling. I still go counselors and therapy and so forth. So I develop a rap with them, and through it's just self-replicating, because what I do, most of them don't know how to do. And
but you still have to go. Do you advertise so that people can find you, or do you just have a lead flow of people calling you and say, "Hey, I need your help"?
Oh, yes. It's basically, yes, through, I also use business cards and, but basically it's more like one client and then recommendations and, people who have good experience with me.
So if somebody's listening to this program in prison or in jail, or if they're in a school for at-risk, if they've been identified as being an at-risk youth, I think there's a great message here from Rafael, and that's use your time inside to start learning, educating yourself, separating yourself from people who have criminal mindsets so that you can start preparing for the challenges that we all face when we have trouble with the criminal justice system. Now Rafael is in his late 40s. He is a veteran who served in the military. He is a skilled technology worker, and he's self-employed. Pretty impressive. Rafael, what type of challenges have you faced with regard to getting credit and really bringing yourself back into society with regard to being able to get a home loan or a car loan? Has your criminal background played any influence or given you any challenges? And if so, how are you able to overcome them?
Well, I don't depend on the credit system. Everything that I have is basically is paid for. I went to real estate also, and bought several houses. So I don't depend on the credit system much, because that's just basically almost like a prison system. When you're in debt, you're basically like in the prison itself. So I learned, that all that, that in order to be free, you have to disconnect yourself from those traps. When it comes to debt, or depending on credit and cars, and building yourself, into a hole with credit and debt.
What an incredible story to have gone from the criminal justice system inside when you're 10 years old with substance abuse problems, locked up when you're 12 years old, basically raised under the criminal justice system until you're 21 because of supervised release issues.
Yes.
Into the military, find more challenges in your life, but get some training and come back, educate yourself. And what we hear from Rafael is you don't even need the bank. You don't even need credit. You become totally self-reliant and effectively the master of your own destiny, where you don't ever allow yourself to go into a prison of debt or a prison that takes your liberty away. That is the story we are hearing from Rafael, a man who was once involved in the juvenile justice system, in gangs, and was incredibly violent on the street, but now is a successful law-abiding citizen. And yet you're still interested somewhat in the criminal justice system because you reached out to us. How is it that you ended up finding our program, Rafael? Do you know?
Yeah, I found your program when I was researching some information on the prison debate, prisoners debate versus Howard, or the the undergraduate law students, and I found you on YouTube. That's the way it was. And when I started researching you, man, I said, you're incredible.
Well, you're incredible, Rafael. I'm just a man who was in prison for 26 years. You're a man who has served society honorably and overcome enormous challenges. And that's why I'm so grateful to you for sharing your story, because our job here at Prison Professors is to inspire people who are in prison, is to educate people who are in prison and help them see that they can become self-resourceful and they can create their own pathways to success. You are a mentor to me. Whenever I look to somebody who's done what you have done, it inspires me to want to do more. And I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Could I just mention one thing also, Mike?
Please do.
I also been involved in prison ministry. I am also a minister, and I spent a lot of time talking to prisoners. In Jersey, I spent a good about 7-8 years talking to prisoners in different parts of New Jersey. And currently here, I go to local jails, and I talk to those that are basically on their way to prison, or keeping them from going into prison, because one thing leads to the other, it escalates. And I go directly to the supervisor or the sheriff's department or whoever, and I share and witness to them about, the word of God, and trying to keep them from going into a greater, or making greater mistakes, because that's what it is. Because
you've absolutely got that right. That's one of the things that our program is all about. When we talk about the Straight A Guide and what that means, it means going forward with the right attitude, having 100% commitment to success. We heard Rafael that's the strategy he has been living. He's rejected the criminal lifestyle. He rejected criminal associations. He found a relationship with God and mentors to guide him. The next step is an aspiration in our program to see yourself as being something more than past challenges. We talk about taking incremental action steps. That's what Rafael has been doing, educating himself, learning, creating his own jobs, holding himself accountable, and becoming aware of things that he could do. We don't hear any bitterness in Rafael. We don't hear him complaining about anything. We just hear really this extraordinary level of gratitude and appreciation for the blessings that God has given him. And he tries to give back by going back into jails and prisons and mentoring other people who are at risk of going into the system. And that's why I really want to thank you, Rafael, for sharing your story with our audience at Prison Professors. Do you have any final words to say before we close out this episode?
Yes. Thank you, Mike, for having me in the podcast and interviewing me. I appreciate the work you're doing, man. I mean, it's very inspiring. You're helping people out there. You're reaching out, and you transform. You're a transformational person. Your spirit is very strong. Not only I can feel it in your voice, but in so many other ways. You have a strong spirit, and keep doing what you're doing and helping people out, because you are the light.
Well, I couldn't do it without people like you and the many others who support our program, and I thank you, and we hope that you will share it with others. I am Michael with prisonprofessors.com. My partners are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. What we strive to do is help people who are going into the criminal justice system or people who are experiencing it. We want to show them that they can emerge successfully, and it all begins with the decisions people make early. It's never too early, and it's never too late to begin sowing seeds for a better life. And if you'd like to know how we help, text the word Prison Pro to 44222. That's text Prison Pro to 44222. Thank you very much. We've been listening to Rafael Gonzalez, who is currently living in Memphis, a successful law-abiding citizen after challenges with the criminal justice system. We'll be back tomorrow with another inspiring guest. Thank you.